Today's sharing is entitled Mindfulness Based Resilience, and we are looking at what are the teachings of the Buddha that I have actually utilized. The program I have conducted in the prisons and also in various other places. It is in a secular manner, because in the Philippines, with most people being Catholic and other Christian denominations, if I keep talking about the Buddha, some of them would lose interest quite quickly, especially in the prison when most of them are Catholics, and there are also some Muslims and a few other. So very, very few are Buddhists. So when I do this program, I refrain from using the name Buddha too much, but I do tell them that I am a Buddhist and the teachings originally come from the Buddha. So without further ado, let's take a quick look at what is in store for us today. This is really transformed into a mental health program, because I started off as a stress reduction program, and it was only focusing on reducing stress. But as time went by, I found that the problems that people are faced with is actually a lot more complex. So I started to add on a lot of material, and now it has become a full-fledged mental health program. We draw a lot of concept, teaching, and inspiration from the Buddha Dharma, what the Buddha taught. So in the program that I conduct in the Philippines, basically it is a holistic intervention program for mental health issues, so that we can help people heal the mind and the body, both the body getting all stressed up and the mind getting all distressed and disturbed. So this is a very holistic intervention program, and I apply a lot of neuro-linguistic programming, basically to help people transform the way they think. The thinking part is very important, because when people's mind are distracted by unwholesome thinking, then they may start to behave in unwholesome ways. And this is exactly what the Buddha has been warning us. So one of the things that I try to do is to help people reshape the way they are thinking by applying neuro-linguistic programming. I also use quite a bit of clinical hypnotherapy. Hypnotherapy basically is a form of hypnosis, but it is not getting people to do funny things. It's actually putting people at rest, put their mind at peace, so that their mind it becomes peaceful and still. And from there, I can actually help reprogram their thinking by ingesting various forms of affirmations and very positive thoughts, so that they can think in a very positive way. And I'll show you later on what are some of the things that I do. And one of the things that I found out is that I used to treat people with depression using both NLP and clinical hypnotherapy, and trying to get people who are depressed to come out of that depressed mood is very difficult, and it takes a long time. Sometimes it takes me 30 minutes of clinical hypnotherapy and NLP to help the person come out of that depressed mood. Sometimes it even takes longer. Then I found out laughter yoga, and I went all the way to India to learn from the guru, Dr. Madan Kataria, the founder of laughter yoga. And it's a technique that is so helpful when I'm treating people who are depressed. I can actually snap them out of depressed mood within minutes sometimes. As fast as within a few minutes, they are not feeling depressed anymore. By using laughter yoga, by helping them to get into the mood of laughing. Even if they don't feel like laughing, when people around them are laughing, when it is in a group, they actually get inspired and they stimulated to laugh along. And the moment they start to laugh, they will snap out of their depressed mood. So it has been a very useful and powerful tool. In fact, that's why people say laughter is the best medicine. And I'm going to show you why also that laughter is very helpful. And all that I do is evidence-based interactive intervention processes. That means it is based on scientific findings. I don't just simply take something from YouTube and show people. I take it from people who are either neuroscientists, psychologists, or motivational gurus. So I take material from them and then turn it into something helpful, practical for the prison inmates as well as for the average person. In fact, yesterday I conducted such a session in Payatas at the Ina ng Lupang Pangako parish in Payatas. There is a group of about 30 youth leaders and also committee members of the parish. It's a Catholic church, and they attended this and they actually really experienced transformation. It's a paradigm shift, we call it. The mind begins to realize a lot of things. So I hope today's sharing, you will see some of that, and then it will catch on to you. And of course, there's a lot of practical tips and helpful exercises that is being introduced. The whole program that I conduct is very action-oriented. It involves a lot of singing, exercises, laughter, and people getting together. So I'll just show you what I do in the prison. As you can see, the 3-4 pictures on the right, these are the male prison inmates. This is in Leyte Regional Prison, where they have about 3,500 inmates there. I have been going there regularly every 2-3 months. In fact, I'm going there again next week. I was there last month. Every time I go there, I conduct sessions for 100, 200 of them. Of course, there are 3,500. I can't do all 3,500 in one visit. So from time to time, I get them to pick select groups. They also select people who can understand English. Unfortunately, I can't speak Tagalog. I only know 1 or 2 words. So I have to use English. So they will pick people who can understand at least some English, and then they will benefit from the session. So those on the right, they are the male prison inmates in Leyte Regional Prison. Those on the left, these are the females in the Correctional Institution for Women in Mandaluyong City. Right? And I also go there very regularly. Both places, I go there every time I come to the Philippines. So every 2 months or so, I spend a few days in each of these locations, conduct several classes, and it has been very successful in the sense that they all really benefited. Some of them kept asking, when am I going to do the next session? I actually, for these people, I have to do shorter and simpler versions. So I have what we call 4 levels. Instead of, one program and it becomes too deep for them, I break it into 4 modules. So there are 4 stages, and many of them have already attended the first 3. I will be doing the 4th, level 4, when I go back there in September. Until now, I have only been doing level 1 and level 2, and then this trip I'm going to do a lot of level 3. For those who have attended level 1, then they move on to level 2, and now those people are going to attend level 3. You will notice a very interesting picture on the bottom left. Why they are wearing different color. Now, orange is for maximum security. These are hardcore criminals. And blue is for medium security. And they have very few what we call minimum security, which is brown. I didn't do much for the people in brown, but mostly for the people in orange and some in blue. And I get them to participate. In fact, they enjoy it so much. You will notice in the bottom picture, right, the bottom left picture, right-hand side, seated on my left, 3 of them are Muslims. And this was conducted inside a chapel. They don't mind, They don't have the mental block. They say, I'm a Muslim, I'm not going to attend this. This is a chapel, I'm not going to go inside. They're not like that. They're very open-minded. And in fact, I got them to make the cross. And you can see even the Muslim ladies didn't mind doing it because it was all part of the fun. So this action-oriented program is very helpful because they don't want to sit there and listen to lectures. The prison invites a lot of psychologists to come and give talks on mental health. But what these psychologists do is they spend 1 to 2 hours talking, and and people sit there falling asleep. What I'm doing here is actually get them excited, participate, laughter, and you can see they're all raising their hands and really having a good time. That really helps, because in that process, I start to ingest a lot of teachings. So what are some of the teachings? First, let's take a look at the situation with these incarcerated people. They are by far the people most suffering, most severely stressed, hurting, and suffering people in the world. Because day in, day out, they are confined inside the compound. They cannot go anywhere, right? They are deprived of liberty. One of the things I like in the Philippines, especially the Bureau of Corrections, they use the term PDL, person deprived of liberty, to refer to prison inmates. A few words they do not ever use. They never call them prisoners. Because when you call someone a prisoner, it has a negative impact on their thinking. So they're called persons deprived of liberty. So they feel better. It's like a disabled person with disability. Instead of saying that you are a cripple, I mean, a person who is a cripple, if you call him a cripple, he doesn't feel good. But if you call him a person deprived of, a person with disability, he feels better. In the same way, you call this person a prisoner or convict, that's even worse. You know, it hurts them, reminding them of their situation. But if they're called persons deprived of liberty, it smoothens the whole thing. But the meaning is the same. They are deprived of liberty. And basically, they are deprived of freedom, liberty, their family, their friends, their society, even self-esteem, being inside the prison. And they are lacking in basic hygiene, basic health, and food and comfort necessities. And they are subjected to very strict rules. 8 times a day there is roll counting, head counts. Imagine you have to stand in the queue and wait for the head count 8 times a day. You know, that's almost one every 1.5 hour of your waking hour. And that is really quite restrictive, under control. And they're facing the same walls, so they're being hurt very badly. They themselves go through that kind of experience. If you don't go through it, you don't really know what it's like. You can only imagine it. But if you've been inside and see it for yourself, then you will realize how tough it is. And many of them don't even know when they will be released. The system in the Philippines is so poor. When a person is due for release, often he doesn't get released unless he has the money to hire a lawyer and go to the court and file the papers to get them released right away. Very often, many of the inmates are imprisoned in additional to their normal sentences. They end up a few more years because nobody has paid attention to the fact they are due for release. So they face all kinds of adversities and challenges and uncertainties day in, day out. And they get bullied. They get bullied by the seniors. They get despised. They are deprived of many things. And basically, it is a continuous experience of anger, fear, frustration, anxiety, trauma, uncertainty, shame, blame, regrets, worries, and all kinds of negative emotions hurting them. In other words, they are facing an endless barrage of stress. Stress is something nobody can avoid. Every single one of us, every day, we experience stress. There is not one single person in this world who does not experience stress almost on a daily basis. If you're very good at practicing mindfulness, if you're very good at doing meditation, you may have a lesser chance of experiencing stress. But nevertheless, every single person experiences all kinds of stress. So basically, the challenge for me in bringing the Buddha Dharma into the prison is the fact that I have to use it to teach them how to handle harmful effects of stress. That means I teach them things that can help them relax and relieve their suffering. So relaxation and relief are very important part of the lessons. I also have to teach them to deal with their emotions, depressive moods. So therefore, I need to basically spend time to help them recover from emotional arousals. And that is also a very major part of the activity. And I'm going to show you today how we actually can use the Buddha Dharma to help people recover from emotional arousals. And then finally help them to build endurance so that they're able to survive the prison experience, building endurance survival skills. And there I used the full program called Mindfulness Based Resilience. The word resilience actually is more than just being able to recover from your problem. A lot of people think, oh, resilience, that means I can recover. It is more than just recovery. You see, when you go through a stressful situation, recovering is just half the solution. The other half of the solution is for you to learn how to adapt, adjust yourself. Adapting, because if you're not able to adapt, even if you are able to recover in that instance, the next time a similar problem arises, you will experience the same level of stress over again. So learning to adapt helps you reduce the suffering the next time it happens. So all of us have to learn that also, learn how to adapt and adjust ourselves. So the program basically is called Mindfulness Based Resilience. The power to recover, adapt, and once they're able to adapt and build resilience, then they can thrive. They can actually find happiness even in the prison environment. It is not what they choose, but at the same time, it is helping them in a lot of ways. So let's first talk about stress. That's really what everybody goes through. Now there are two major terms we have to understand, stress and stressors, and then understand how stress affects us.
Stress happens, and that's not always bad. Starting a new job or getting married can both be happy things, but they can also be really stressful. There's some kinds of stress that just don't seem to go away, though, like the feeling that you're drowning in work, but still perpetually worried about making ends meet. If you deal with a lot of stress every day for months or years on end, then stress doesn't just feel awful, it actually causes you physical harm. Psychologists call any event or situation that puts pressure on you or threatens your well-being a stressor, while stress refers to your psychological and physical reaction.
Stressors are things happening around you, events that trigger internal experience of conflict and threat. And then it causes bodily reaction and mental disturbances. So this is what we call autonomic. Autonomic means it arises automatically internally. You have no control over it. And the first autonomic reaction is that the brain starts to trigger the release of stress hormones. We cannot stop that. Nobody in the world can prevent the trigger and release of stress hormone. But what we can do is to learn how to recover from it. Learn how to relieve ourselves of this stressful experience. So in other words, the stress hormone causes a lot of physical suffering. We can learn how to relax and relieve and reduce the suffering, but we cannot stop or prevent the release of stress hormones. So when people start to talk about helping people to manage stress, they call it stress management. Actually, in reality, you cannot manage stress. When stress strikes, it happens. You cannot manage it, but what you can do is to help reduce the harmful effect, relieve yourself of the pain and the suffering. So stress management and stress control, that doesn't exist. But stress reduction, stress relief, that is what we are able to do. Help ourselves, relieve ourselves from the suffering of stress. So stressors is what happens outside. The stress reaction is what happens inside us and affecting the body, disturbing the mind. So let's take a look at what are stressors. Now, if you ask a psychologist, he'll probably break down into several categories, tens or maybe hundreds of categories of stressors. But if you look at all forms of stressors around you, you can basically group them into three major categories of stressors. The first is something that arouses emotion, whatever it is. It can be the news of a dearly beloved relative who just passed away, and then suddenly you feel in deep depression, you feel anger, you feel hurt, you feel loss, you feel grief. So these are negative emotions arising when you hear a certain news of something unpleasant, or anything else that trigger emotions. It can be a person, your neighbor who doesn't like you and starts always disturbing you, saying nasty things about you, spreading bad rumors, and that hurts you. That is also another form of emotional arousal. So the first category of stressors are things or events that arouse negative emotions. We call them emotional trauma. Arousing negative emotions of anger, fear, anxiety, and all kinds of negative emotions arising. The second category of stressors are things not according to your plan, not according to your expectations, not according to your wishes, something going wrong. And when they go wrong, they sort of present some kind of a threat or a conflict to your well-being, or threat or conflict to your perception of how to become a successful person at work. You lose your job. Losing your job is an example. It is an adversity, it's a problem. Encountering problems, troubles, difficulties, obstructions, and very often adversities come with emotional trauma. So in other words, it doesn't mean just because it falls into the category of adversity, it does not arouse emotions. It does. It can be all three even. So adversity is when something is not according to your expectation, something going wrong. And the third category is basically uncertainty, confusion, perplexity, unexpected and unfamiliar things happening around you, changes, right? Perplexity, indecisiveness, even boredom. So these are the three major categories. Anything you experience in life that stresses you, you can easily place it in one or even more than one of the three categories. So it's very important to realize that try not to complicate it by breaking down stressors into 10 different categories, because then it's difficult for you to realize what is happening and how you can deal with it. So when something happens, realize it is either arousing negative emotions or something not according to your wishes or creating a lot of uncertainties. All this, unfortunately, human beings react without thinking. As a result of that, we often react immediately. The moment we get stressed, we react. And we don't think about it. And this process of reacting without thinking is what in Buddhism we commonly call unmindful. Like for example, one of your neighbors don't like you. Somebody who keeps making trouble for you, and one day walks up to you and starts to say very bad things about you and spreading bad rumors, and then you get angry. What do people do? Very often when they hear some bad words spoken to them, they shout back at the other person. So it becomes a quarrel. That is really making the stress getting out of control. We got to learn to reduce the harmful effect of stress. First, let's take a look at how stress affects the brain and the body.
When you're stressed, the fear center in the brain, called the amygdala, takes over. The brain sends out a distress call, which results in the adrenal glands located above the kidneys releasing hormones that speed up your heartbeat and breathing and push more blood to your muscles. Once the threat passes, your stress response winds down. For our prehistoric ancestors being chased by wild animals, this fight or flight response could be very useful, but in the modern world, it's a problem when the perceived threat never goes away. When the brain is under constant stress, it can change in ways that make you even more vulnerable to stress. A constant flood of stress hormones can also do damage by weakening your immune system, leaving you more prone to infections. It may trigger inflammation that puts you at greater risk for conditions like heart disease and diabetes. Learning how to cope with stress can help minimize these effects. Try practicing relaxation techniques like meditation, yoga, or deep breathing.
There are many things we can practice to help ourselves. Meditation, yoga, deep breathing, and several more. I'm going to show you those in a moment. There are several more that we can actually do more than that. So what happens when we get stressed? Now, there is a part of the brain called the amygdala. What this part of the brain does is everything we see, hear, smell, taste, or touch all our sensory inputs come into the brain and passes through the amygdala. And the amygdala is connected to the memory system. It is connected to the like the librarian of your memory. It is not storing the memory, but it is connected to the memory system. So whatever you see, hear, smell, taste, and touch, the amygdala compares it with memory and see whether this is a threat or not a threat. So in other words, if someone walks up to you and shout at you, this shouting at you is perceived as a threat. And then it triggers that chain reaction called stress. And that chain reaction starts off by sending a signal to your adrenal gland, which is located above your kidneys, so we have two of them. And they release stress hormones. Cortisol and adrenaline are two of the most powerful hormones being released, stress hormones. There are also several other stress hormones, but they are not as powerful as these two. These two are so powerful, they change your body in a very big way. First, they cause your heart to beat faster. See, when you get stressed, when you're experiencing trauma or any kind, your heart starts beating fast because of stress hormones being released. You cannot control that. You cannot stop that. What you can do is help yourself after that, but not preventing it. So there's no prevention in this case. Okay? And then it causes your breathing to quicken. It causes your digestive system to be suspended. The reason is that when you have taken food, the digestive system goes into action. It draws a lot of energy from the rest of your body. And because of that, you don't have a lot of energy to fight against the stress. That's why many people, after they've had a very heavy meal and they sit down to listen to a lecture or they try to read a book, they start to get drowsy, get sleepy. You are sleepy soon after having a heavy meal while listening to a lecture or reading a book is because your digestive system working, drawing energy away from your brain. Now, the stress hormones are so powerful, it stops the digestive system so that it releases this energy for you to be able to fight or flight against the stress activity that's going on. So it helps you. It helps you to fight against the stressors. And it also causes the muscles to be all tensed up. You see, the reason is very simple. If your muscles are relaxed and soft, you cannot react very fast. But if your muscles are tense, you can react very quickly. This is why it tenses your muscles so that any threat, you can react quickly. Classic example, you're walking down the street, walking along the pavement, next to the major road. Suddenly a jeepney goes out of control, or a tricycle goes out of control and comes towards you. Do you have time to think, oh, this tricycle is coming towards me. If I don't jump out of the way, it's going to run over me and hurt me. Do you have time to think like that? No. Stress is helping you. The stress in your body creates a lot of automatic reaction, and one of the automatic reaction is fight or flight. In the case of a tricycle coming towards you or a jeepney coming towards you, is flight. Fight means you want to challenge it. Flying. Flight means you want to avoid it, get away from it. So we fight or flight. In the case of a jeepney approaching you, you flight. You can't challenge the jeepney, so you jump out of the way. This jumping out of the way is an autonomic reaction in your body because of the way the brain has evolved, and you have programmed yourself over years of upbringing that a threat like that, you better jump out of the way. But children, young children like 2-3 years old, if they're standing there, a jeepney comes towards them, they are frozen. So the third reaction is freeze, because they have not been conditioned to jump out of the way. So the first time a child sees a jeepney coming towards him, he doesn't know what to do. He's frozen. That's why we have these three things called fight, flight, and freeze. Freeze is usually experiencing something unusual for the first time. So this is really this stress reaction in the body. Stress reaction is evolved in the body to help you stay alive. That's really what it is. It is harmful to you in many ways, but it helps you stay alive. Because without this stress reaction, if the jeepney comes towards you, you don't have time to think, oh, he's going to run over me, I'm going to get hurt, so it's time for me to jump out of the way. You don't have time to think. your body reacts automatically. And it causes hair to stand on end as a way of alerting you something is bad. For example, you see, we human beings are not like dogs and cats. We don't have long furry hair anymore. So we can't see much of it. But you can experience it when you watch a horror movie. Suddenly a frightening scene and your whole body goes into this tingling sensation. That's because the hair in your body is standing on end. You feel it. So hair standing on end, pupils dilating, your eyes open up to see, oh, what is happening? How can we avoid it? Facial expression distorted. And basically this is evolved because animals are evolved in such a way when they are stressed by a predator, for instance, they make themselves look fierce to try to fight back the predator. And that is a natural evolution in a human being too. When somebody makes us angry, the first thing we do is we show this very pangit face. That's natural. Because it's a stress hormone making us want to make ourselves look tough, And of course then you have perspiration and a whole lot of other things. You can see in the picture, the top left there, hair standing on end. But we don't have hair that long, so we don't get that. Pupils dilating, the eyes opening up, facial expression distorted, muscles are all tensed up. That is a very natural reaction, right, when we experience fight or flight. And then it produces a lot of sugar in the blood, because sugar in the blood helps you produce more energy. Sugar is sent out through your blood system to provide energy for you to fight back against the threat. And it suspends your immune system. You see, if the immune system is active, the immune system is strong, when you get stressed and stress hormone starts to release, the immune system being strong can stop the stress hormone being released, because stress hormone is harmful to the body. Your immune system will try to stop it. Unfortunately, or fortunately, these stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, are so powerful. They stop the immune system from working, so that they can spread throughout your body and cause all these changes in your body. So you have to be careful. If you don't help yourself, and the first thing you can learn to do to help yourself when you get stressed is to learn to relax. That's the most important thing. People, when they first start to experience stress, the first thing they must do is to learn to relax. Otherwise, if they try to fight or run away or whatever, that fight or flight will actually create more stress happening in the body. Of course, except when your life is in danger, like a jeepney coming towards you, you jump out of the way, you don't relax, you jump out of the way. But other than that, if somebody said something terrible to you and then you get upset, then you should learn to relax. Otherwise, if you shout back at that person, it becomes a fight. If you don't help yourself relax when you get stressed, the stress hormone can dry up your skin and your bones and everything. In fact, it was even mentioned in the Bible that it dries up your bones. So it makes you look very pangit. When you see someone like that, so many wrinkles all over the face, this is a person who has experienced a lot of stress in his life. So you look yourself in the mirror. If you find yourself having a lot of wrinkles, then you must be having a very stressful life. Your skin getting dry in the face, you're having a very stressful life. You got to learn to relax. That's the important thing, okay? And that helps. Nobody can protect themselves from that. Even a saint like Mother Teresa, she experienced all kinds of stress because what she does on a daily basis is very stressful, and therefore even her skin is all dried up. Okay, so this is really what stress can do for you, or do to you, causing fight, flight, or freeze reaction. Fight means you want to challenge it, you want to get rid of it. Freeze means, flight means you want to run away from it, you want to escape away from it, avoid it. Freeze means you're confused, you don't know what to do, and you just stuck there staring at it. And that's what most children do when they are experiencing a problem for the first time. Now let's take a look at the flow of how all this is happening. We call this the vicious cycle of emotions. So we first experience things in the environment. Like things are happening around us, we experience it. So what we experience, we begin to form perception. How we perceive our circumstances. And if we begin to perceive our circumstances to be something that is traumatic, triggering, emotional, arising, or distress, or threats and conflicts or uncertainty, we begin to react. That's the problem, reacting immediately to perception of negative emotions, threats and conflicts and uncertainties. And that causes the body to become uncomfortable. The body is all tensed up, the mind is all disturbed. At this point in time, if you realize your body is tense, like your fist is all tight, especially here, you realize this part of your neck is all tensed up, your teeth are gritting, realize you are highly stressed at that moment. Learn to relax. If not, stress gets out of control. And when stress gets out of control, it causes an emotional chain reaction. And that makes you go into deep depression or goes into deep emotional states. And when it gets out of control, it really, there is very little way to reverse this. Right? So, and that can bring about a lot of suffering. Depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, psychological disorder, mental, causing the mental mind to go crazy, chronic illnesses and health issues. Because we react without thinking and end up fight or flight reaction. Now, I'm going to show you a short video of this motivational speaker, one of the very famous motivational speaker of the 90s and until recently he passed away, Dr. Wayne Dyer. When I was a young student of these things, I follow him a lot. Very, very good speaker. So listen to what he says about using the orange as a metaphor, why we react.
An orange is a simple metaphor. You take this orange and you squeeze it as hard as you can squeeze it, and you ask yourself, what will come out? And what comes out when you squeeze an orange? Orange juice. Never, no matter how many times you squeeze it, will apple juice come out. There's no mistakes. You'll never get grapefruit juice out of this thing, ever. The only thing you'll ever get out of it is orange juice. And the next question is why? Why when you squeeze an orange, as hard as you can squeeze it, does orange juice come out? And I asked that question up in Toronto one time, there's a little girl sitting right in the front row. She said, that's dumb. She said, that's what's inside. It has to come out. I said, well, that's the answer. You are really smart. And she smiled, and she thought that was great. But that's the truth. The reason that orange juice comes out when you squeeze it is because that's what's inside. Now you extend the metaphor, and someone squeezes you. That is, someone says something about you that you don't like. Someone behaves towards you in a way that you find offensive. Somebody does something or says something to you that you feel hurt by. And out of you comes anger, hatred, bitterness, tension, fear, anxiety, stress. And immediately you say, the reason that comes out of me is because of how he said it, or the way that she said that, or because they did that. But the truth is, the reality is, that what comes out is what's inside. And if you don't like what's inside, you can change it.
If you don't like what's inside, you can change it. Because it comes from within us. We have no control over what goes on around us. We may be able to influence it by our behavior, by being kind and nice to people, then people are nice to us in return, but we can never control it. If somebody wants to be nasty to us, we can't control that. Right? We can maybe try to advise the person, but we cannot control it. But what we can control is inside us, how we react. That's why I teach them this very important saying. If it is to be, it is up to me. So you have to realize that if you really want to change what's inside, you are the only one who can do it to help yourself. No one else can help you there. Maybe people can guide you to think about it, but you have to do something about it. So what's inside? Now if you look at the mind is made of two parts. A very small part of it, 10 to 20% of it is above the surface. And 80 to 90% of it is below the surface. Meaning only a small part of your mind is conscious, fully aware. And a big part, the majority of your mind, 80 to 90% of what goes on in your mind is below the surface, unaware. What you are aware of is your present moment awareness. This is why in mindfulness training, we're going to train ourselves to look at present moment. Don't think about the past, don't worry about the future. Focus on the present moment. And clear comprehension, understanding what's going on. Discernment, being able to see something and realize what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad, right? What is helpful, what is harmful. And then logic and reasoning, being able to analyze and decipher. And critical thinking, to be able to choose good things from bad, choose how you can improve yourself and so on. The willpower to do something about it and making decisions. These are the conscious mind. But what is the unconscious mind? A whole lot of stuff, starting with perception. What you perceive. What you perceive is not fixed. It depends on the situation at that moment in time. Even the same thing happening to you. Let's say somebody says a certain word to you, makes you angry. On another occasion, a different person saying exactly the same words to you. The way you perceive two situations may not be the same, because it is volatile. It is not fixed. So perception, opinions, intention, wishes, desires, fears, phobias, whole lot of things, including mental proliferation, the mind going crazy. All that is under the surface, in the subconscious or unconscious mind. But it is the perception, the way we perceive our circumstances, that trigger the arising, right? And this is really the arising of stressors, that we begin to imagine these stressors, emotional trauma, adversities, threats and conflicts, uncertainties. They begin to make us think like that, and therefore these are stressors. And then we begin to react with fight or flight. That is human nature. If we don't go through proper mindfulness training, we will always react. So that's why it's very important to learn mindfulness so that you can help yourself reduce this. Why? Because of evolution, right? The human being is the only species of animal that regrets the past, is dissatisfied with the present, and fearful of the future. Your dogs and cats at home don't do that. Your dogs and cats, they are not regretting the past. They don't care. If you forgot to feed them yesterday, and then today you give them some food, they don't care about what happened yesterday. They don't think about it. But if your boss did not pay you salary last month, and now pay you double, even pay you double this month to make up for it, you still get angry because last month he didn't pay me. You know, that's human nature, right? We regret the past. We are never satisfied with what we have in front of us. And people who don't learn to be grateful, they are hurting themselves every time. And then we think about the future, we get fearful. Dogs and cats don't think about the future. They only live in the moment. Dogs and cats just want their food in the moment, go out and play. That's it. That's all they care about. The same with even a lion. A lion is hungry. So what does he do? He goes out hunting the deer. He catches the deer and eats it. Now his stomach is very full. So he just lay down there and sleep under the sun in the shade and relaxing. While he's so full and sleeping, even if a deer walks past in front of him, he doesn't care because he's already full. But human beings are not like that, you know. We're always dissatisfied with whatever is going on. That's why it's very important, and this is a very powerful lesson from Viktor Frankl, that when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. We have to do something to help ourselves. Prevent this arising from subconscious mind, hurting us, disturbing us, causing us to behave in unwholesome ways. If it is to be, it is up to me. These are very powerful lessons that the prison inmates have to realize and have to learn. because otherwise they are hurting themselves every day, day in, day out. That's why I conduct this cultivating mindfulness based resilience program. And there are two major words here, mindfulness and resilience. Let's take a look at the word mindfulness. In the teachings of the Buddha, the word mindfulness, the complete teaching of mindfulness, comes from sutras that mention satipatthana. Satipatthana is a Pali word that describes the complete teaching of mindfulness. There are four foundations of mindfulness. If we look at the word satipatthana, it can be broken down into three major words. This is using the translation from my teacher, Venerable Dr. Punnaji. He actually has a PhD in psychology. He was also a medical doctor before he became a monk. He has a PhD in psychology, also a PhD in interreligions, various religions. Okay, so he has 2 PhD and he's also a medical doctor. That's why we joke about him. He's a doctor 3 times over. Medical doctor, PhD in psychology, PhD in religions. Right? He analyzes word and say it is 3 words. Sati patana is made of the words sati, upa, and tana. Sati basically refers to attention. What are you focusing on? What are you paying attention on? That's sati. Upa. Upa means within, inside you, going inwards. And tana. Tana means to place or position or to focus. So sati upatana simply means to place or focus your attention within, inside. And therefore he used the word introspection. Okay. Now, when we look at the Buddha's teaching in the sutra, what does it say? So this comes from the Satipatthana Sutra, Majjhima Nikaya 10, where it is explained, the Buddha said that there are 4 areas to consider. That's why we call the 4 focuses of introspection. Some other traditions call it the 4 foundations of mindfulness. I think some of you have heard it. The 4 foundations of mindfulness. So what are the 4? The first, the Buddha mentioned about using the word in Pali, kaya. Kaya basically means body. It can be the physical body, can be also the whole body, including the mental part. So here is referring to the bodily activities. Right? Basically the reaction of the bodily activities. And then the second foundation is Vedana. Vedana is feelings, sensations, feelings, how it feels. So it is actually the feeling of tension in the body, the agitation, the pain, the discomfort, pleasantness and unpleasantness of whatever you are experiencing physically. Right? So this is Vedana. The third foundation the Buddha mentioned is Chitta. Chitta is often translated simply as mind. But my teacher, because he is very knowledgeable in these translations, and he's also got a PhD in psychology, he actually explained that here, Chitta, the Buddha was referring to our emotional states, our affection, our mood, our temperament, and emotional states. So in this case, it's talking about, first, the kaya is when the body is changing, the stress hormones affecting the body. The Vedana is making us feel uncomfortable, discomfort. And that is disturbing the mind. The disturbance of the mind is the chitta, being disturbed. The mind now becomes emotional. And finally, it causes us to think about what to do. Forming thoughts, formation of thoughts, concepts, interpretation of our circumstances based on the experience. So that's Dharma. And this is commonly referred to as conception, or conception and perception. Finally, it leads, we have to become fully aware that this is really what mindfulness is about. Bringing attention inwards on the 4 focuses of introspection, or the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Realizing that when something is happening, it triggers release of stress hormone, it makes us feel uncomfortable, it disturbs our mind, our emotions are aroused, and then we begin to think of thoughts, what to do, and very often very unwholesome thoughts. Thoughts of revenge or resentment. Right? So basically these are the 4 foundations, and that's Now, there's a very famous teacher by the name of John Kabat-Zinn. Some of you may have heard. He's the founder of Mindfulness Based Stress Reduction. And he actually translated mindfulness into very simple English, and he calls it moment to moment, non-judgmental awareness cultivated by paying attention on purpose in the present moment. Very simple translation, but quite strong meaning behind it. Moment to moment. He's not talking about thinking about the past. He's not talking about worrying about the future. He's not talking about comparing about various past experiences. He's talking about moment to moment as we experience it. Do not be judgmental, non-judgmental, and become aware of what's going on. And this can be cultivated by intentionally by focusing on what is happening, paying attention, especially to what is happening inside you, in the present moment. That's why they say mindfulness is to live in the present moment. So how do we practice mindfulness? I'm not translating this into a very simple English. How do we practice it? The important thing about mindfulness is that when something happens around us, we have to be aware that it is affecting us. In other words, realize that anything that happens around us is affecting us in one way or another. How? First, it affects our body. Stress hormones being released. Next, it affects the way we feel. Comfort and discomfort, agitation, and so on. Right? And third, basically it triggers emotional arousal, mental disturbances. And finally, we make decisions. We perceive what's going on and we want to decide what to do, a rising of thoughts and desires. So these are really the four foundations of mindfulness. But here I'm putting it in very simple language so you can really understand. And mindfulness simply means to be aware of the vicious cycle that is happening. When we perceive something and then we perceive it to be a threat or adversity, we react. We realize that that is happening to us. Realize that something is making us stress, these stressors, and that we got to learn to relax. If we don't learn to relax when we get stressed, we actually cause the stress to get out of control. And then stress controls us. We are not able to calm it down. And finally, refrain from judgment and focus on relaxation. This is the key thing about getting stressed. So do not react unmindfully. And this is also taken from the first two verses of the Dhammapada, where the Buddha mentioned, right? Our mind basically determines our destiny. Cognition precedes all experiences. That means the way we think precedes every experience. Every time we experience something, we start to think about in a certain ways. It predominates and even creates our experience. The way we think can change the way we react, and that creating new experiences. With unwholesome thought, that means if we start to think in unwholesome way or speak in an unwholesome way, we are creating suffering. Pain follows as the carriage follows the drawing animal. So this is what the Buddha pointed out, that if we perceive something to be threatening to us and we form these negative thoughts, then we are creating suffering. On the other hand, the second verse of Dhammapada, the Buddha mentioned the same thing. Cognition precedes all experiences. It predominates and even creates them. With wholesome thought, that means if we start to think in good ways, positive ways, and speak in positive ways, we can actually make ourselves feel peaceful and happy. Happiness follows as one's own inseparable shadow. So this is really what the Buddha has taught us, that the mind controls and determines our destiny. If we learn to make good use of our mind to think in wholesome ways, we can experience happiness. Otherwise, we will experience suffering. And in another verse, in one of the sutras, the sutra on emotions, the Buddha pointed out, emotions dominate the world. Emotions create distress. Emotion is that one thing to which all are spellbound. That means if you are not training yourself for an untrained mind, our emotion basically take control. Our emotion guide us to behave in a certain way. We got to learn to train our mind and not allow this emotion to take control. And the training that I'm developing here is the Mindfulness Based Resilience training, where I talk about there are two aspects of the mind: mental toughness and mental agility. The mind is strong, while at the same time the mind has to be flexible, able to adapt, so that we have the ability to recover quickly from our stressful situations and adapt easily to these stressors, traumatic experiences, adversities, and uncertainties. So there are two aspects of it: the mental toughness and mental agility. The mind is strong and the mind is flexible. So mindfulness-based resilience is really about the mental toughness and mental agility. Mental toughness is the strength of the mind to recover from a situation. Something happens, let's say you walk along the walkway and then you trip and fall down. Mental toughness means you say to yourself, oh, no problem, I'm going to get up. So you get up, brush yourself, continue walking. That is recovering. Learn to recover. Right? Because your mind is strong, you're able to recover. But people with weak minds, they trip over, they fall down, they lay down there and start crying. Oh, it's so painful. Hey, why is this happening to us? You know, these are people whose minds are too weak to learn to recover. So when you experience adversities or something going wrong, learn to recover from it. That is mental toughness, mental strength. Not only that, you also need to have mental agility, flexible mind. Why? Because when you walk past that area and you trip and you fall, you must look at what has happened. You know, learn from it. Learn to adjust your reaction so that the next time you walk by that same area, if it is because there is a dip in the road, then you either avoid the dip, or when you step over the dip, just be a little bit more careful. Right? Then you will not trip again. Learn to adapt. So this learning to adapt is the agility of the mind, right? So that you become smarter and better at recovering and adapting to stressful situations. Learn to recover quickly and adapt easily to emotional trauma, adversities, and uncertainties, the major stressors. Okay. Now, in implementing this program, I teach people there are 4 stages of exercises we need to do, because we do these exercises. 4 stages of them. The first is for people to learn how to relax. It so happened that all 4 begins with the letter R. Not by intention, but it so happened. It is a coincidence. First, when we experience stress, the first thing we do, learn to relax. Relaxation exercises prevent more stress from happening. You see, when the body is stressed and then we learn to relax, we are letting go the stress, releasing the stress, relieving it. But if then the body is stressed and we don't relax and we fight or flight, that stress gets out of control. That stress controls us. So relax. Now, when you are stressed and you try to relax, there's also some parts of your body already tensed. Then comes the second R, relieve. Which part of your body is still tense? Relieve. Stress relief exercises to release the stress tensions. So when we get stressed, the whole body is all tensed up. And then, okay, relax. Try to relax. We can still feel maybe a little bit tension here. We can still feel maybe the jaw is very tight. We can still feel, the fist. So let go. Release. Stress relieves. Relief exercises. Learn to let go. Shake it away. So the second R. The third R, now the mind gets disturbed when you are stressed, so calm your emotions using breathing as the first stage. Right? Deep breathing can help you calm your emotions. And then finally, when you are able to be physically relaxed and emotionally calm, resilience, build mental toughness and agility. So these are the 4 stages of exercises we teach people in this program. And I use this 3-step self-compassion. 3-step self-compassion. Why self-compassion? It is something you do to help yourself. It is something you do because you are compassionate towards yourself. You love yourself, so you want to help yourself. When you're getting stressed, don't react right away. Pause. Do not react. Because when you pause and you don't react, you are allowing time for this emotional excitement and anxiety to calm down. You are also allowing time for the stress hormones to subside. Right? Then you help it along by consciously relaxing with deep breathing. Take deep breaths. And that will help you relax the body and consciously compose the mind, so that the mind becomes calm. And now you apply thinking. Once your body is relaxed and your mind is calm, then you can apply thinking. Purposefully focus on helpful and beneficial response to the problem. So let's take a look at this process of relaxation. One of the techniques that is been expounded by Dr. Herbert Benson. He is actually from the Harvard Medical School.
Using modern technology, Benson is trying to understand how meditation appears to reverse the body's natural stress response.
What we are finding is that for centuries upon centuries, people had discovered that there's something they could do to counteract the harmful effects of stress.
Benson named it the relaxation response. It's the body's innate ability to lower blood pressure, reduce heart rate, and slow breathing.
We are fortunate that we have within us a response opposite to the fight or flight response. That is the relaxation response. And there are scores of techniques.
But in all of them, 2 steps are needed. The first is a repetition, a word, a sound, a movement. The second is freeing your mind of thought by concentrating on that repetition. And everyone can do it. The relaxation response can be triggered by all kinds of activity, from the repetition of a prayer to the primal beat of dancing. Even the rhythm of exercise can reverse the harmful effects of stress.
Even the rhythm of exercise can reverse the harmful effect of stress. So if you experience something that is making you all tensed up and all stressed up, if there is somebody playing basketball or whatever, just join in. Participating in any kind of exercise or game, that breaks your mind away from that stressful situation. So he actually pointed out that what we can do are focusing on relaxation activities. And some of these relaxation activities, they are repetitive, flowing, or rhythmic. Meditation, for instance, is something that is repetitive. You just sit there and observe your breathing over and over again, right? And it is rhythmic because your breathing is going on in cycles, okay? Now you can also use word or phrase. If certain phrase helps you become more relaxed, by all means, like one of the very common one amongst the Mahayanas is the chanting of Om Mani Padme Hum. And a lot of people find that to be very relieving. So if you find that helpful, go ahead, Om Mani Padme Hum, okay? And there are also other kinds of chanting or prayers you can use. Mantra. One of the most powerful mantra is actually developed in India 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. It's not a religious thing, it is basically something that is helpful. It is a simple sound. The spelling is O-M-M, Om. And that is being used in a lot of religions now. It's a very simple sound. Right? Go Om. And that resonance in your nose and your head is very relieving, very stress relieving. Helps you to relieve stress. So these are some of the things. Exercises is very helpful. When you do that, focus on what you're doing. Focus your attention on this. Focus your attention on this relaxation activity, and this will help take your mind away from disturbing thoughts, disruptive thoughts. And when you are able to do that, it is called parasympathetic nervous response. Your body goes into deep relaxation. Now, unfortunately, as I pointed out to you earlier about these subconscious things arising from underneath the surface, we can't control that. It arises at its own choosing. From time to time, disruptive thoughts will arise, disturbing people. And this is why I teach people, when you try to relax and your mind begins to have these disturbing thoughts rising, you must learn to let it go with this very passive response. Ah, well, never mind. Well, never mind. This is very helpful. It may sound trivial, but it is very helpful. And also waving the hand. The waving of the hand is like letting go of a butterfly to fly away. So this, well, never mind. If somebody were to say some terrible things to you and you get upset, say to yourself, well, never mind. See, this is one of the techniques to help people relieve themselves of stress. Do not pay attention to disturbing thoughts arising. Do not try to analyze it. Do not try to dwell upon it. Do not try to remember what is this disturbing thoughts. Simply withdraw attention with, well, never mind. And this is how we can help ourselves recover from emotional trauma. By calming our emotions with this, well, never mind. Very powerful technique. Simple, but it works. And that's why we have this 3-step self-compassion. First, pause. Do not react. Okay? And then, relax. And finally, think. Think. If it is to be, it is up to me. Realize that you have to help yourself. Well, never mind. And let it go. So pause, relax, and think. THINK happens to be an acronym. T means truthful. H can mean helpful. And I can mean improving. And some things you should or should not say, whether it is necessary. And finally, the most important, most powerful is K. Kind. Okay? So these can be used as the gateway to your thinking. Say to yourself, this train of thought that I'm having, is it true? Is it truthful? Does it help me? Will it improve the situation? Is it really necessary? Is it kind or not kind? That's why we got to think good thoughts, speak good words, and do good deeds. And that's why this psychologist stated that the greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another. Choosing one thought over another. This is another part of the Buddha's teaching, coming from a sutra called the Vitakka Santana Sutra in Majjhima Nikaya 20. Calming unwholesome thoughts. And I'm using the translation of my teacher, Venerable Dr. Punnaji. Basically, the Buddha taught his disciples there are 5 ways to calm evil or unwholesome thoughts arising. First, change the channel in your mind. It's just like you watching a TV, watching a certain movie or a certain channel, and you don't like what you're watching. On TV, you just use the remote control and change the channel. In the same way, if your mind is focusing on certain thoughts and it's not helping you, refocus your mind on something else. And of course, sometimes it's easier said than done, but you can try doing that. Change the way, what you're thinking about. If you are thinking about maybe yesterday something happened, made you very upset, your boss said some terrible things to you, warned you and made you angry. Now start thinking about something else. Think about, I'm going to play badminton afterwards, or I'm going to meet up with my family later for dinner. Think about something else. Change the channel. Another way is, when it's hurting you, consider how it can be harmful. consider the consequences of bad thoughts. Another way is to use a technique to let go the bad thoughts, right? Abandoning these bad thoughts, letting go. Another way is to do something relaxing and relieving. And finally, the fifth way is using tension relaxation. That helps us, okay? So now let's take a look at the vicious cycle of emotions, how this fits in. Because when we experience all kinds of things, we react immediately without thinking, and that leads to an emotional chain reaction leading to depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. The main problem is here. We are reacting immediately without thinking. And because we are reacting without thinking, then it causes a lot of problems. That's why we introduce this pause, relax, and think. When you're able to pause, relax, and think, you can then reformulate your thinking in a positive way. And that can help your body to experience comfort and your mind become peaceful. So you have a comfortable body and composed mind. Then you're transforming what we call vicious cycle of emotions into virtuous cycle of composure by applying these 5 ways to calm unwholesome thoughts taught by the Buddha, the Vitakka Santana Sutra. And by doing so, it helps you cultivate good thoughts, mindful resiliency, and you are able to recover quickly and adapt easily. And this leads to healthy body, peaceful mind, caring heart, and joyful spirit. These are the benefits money cannot buy. So these are the benefits that I'm showing to those prison inmates, how we can apply that. So these are the 5 ways. Let's very quickly run through each one. Number 1, changing the channel. You can play sports, you can do recreational activities, you can get involved with hobbies. You can do exercises or meditation or walking or jogging, and do some dance and games. And we do a lot of sing, dance, and laugh and play so that people experience this sharing. Because sharing is caring, caring is healing. And I call this the arithmetic of life. Sorrow, depression, and bad thoughts, negative thoughts. When we're able to share with friends the hurt that we're experiencing, the sorrow that we're experiencing, this is divided. So that's why it's called the arithmetic of life. And happiness, if you are a happy person, share with your friend. You're helping to spread happiness. Happiness, when shared, is multiplied. So we do a lot of these exercises, and one of the things is to sing. And this is one of the very popular songs we use, right? And this is used, and they really love it because it's Tagalog song. Even I can sing it, you know, and make them all very happy, you know. That singing really makes a big difference. Right? Then number 2, consider the harmfulness of bad thoughts. Think of the harmful effects and undesirable consequences of bad thoughts. Right? Avoid harmful self-abuse such as violence, degenerative behavior, and substance abuse, taking drugs and so on. Value health, peace, love, and happiness. So we get these people to participate in exercises that can make them feel they love themselves. Greatest love of all. You can search the entire universe for someone more deserving of your love than you yourself, but that person cannot be found. You yourself, more than anyone else in the world, deserve your own love. We get these people to realize if you don't love yourself, it's so hard to love others. Loving yourself is so important. If you know, when I ask them, what is the greatest love of all? Some of them say, love of God. Of course, you know, some of them are very religious. But I say, don't you love yourself? If you cannot love yourself, even if you are a devout Christian, you cannot love God because you've got to love yourself first. It's what you heard earlier about the orange. When you squeeze an orange juice comes out. If you love yourself, and somebody squeezes you, what comes out? Love. But if you hate yourself, if your mind and heart is full of resentment and anger, when somebody squeezes you, anger and resentment comes out. Right? So that's why it's so important. And we get them to sing this song. Everybody knows this song. Whitney Houston, Greatest Love of All. We get them to do things what we call butterfly hug. Form that butterfly, and we play some soft music, and then they recite good words like I am safe, I am loved, I am happy, I am alive. All these are so helpful. Very, very, very therapeutic. And the third one, letting go of bad thoughts. Well, never mind, is very powerful. Whatever will be. That's why we get them to sing, Hey Sarah, Sarah. And they really love it, It helps them relieve their mind. And not only that, we get them to go into guided meditation. And that's where I start to use these very powerful affirmations. I am relaxed, I am calm, I'm peaceful, I'm safe, I'm loved, I'm happy, I'm alive, and so on. Right? Basically helping themselves program their thinking in a peaceful and happy way. Finally, number 4, do something relaxing and relieving, and that's where I introduce laughter yoga for health, healing, and happiness. Now, laughter, a lot of people don't realize laughter is being expounded in every single religion. In Buddhism, everybody, when you see the Dalai Lama, what do you see? He's always laughing, the Dalai Lama. That's a classic example, laughter. And monks who are very good at teaching mindfulness and meditation, if they're truly practicing, you will find them, they have a very happy face, a laughing face, always. That's why we even have the laughing Buddha and things like that. So laughter is being expounded in every religion. Christianity, in Catholicism, Padre Pio has said this. It says, joy with peace is the sister of charity. Serve the Lord with laughter. And I mentioned to you earlier on, if you don't learn to laugh, this stress hormone can be harmful to you. That's why it says a joyful heart, the laughter, bringing a joyful heart, gives health to the body, while a sad spirit dries up the bones. And this is in the Bible itself. Not only in Christianity and Catholicism, but also in Islam. Hafiz is a very famous sage in Islam. A sage is like a saint. So one of his disciples asked him, "Oh, what is laughter, old Hafiz?" And Hafiz responded, he says, "It is the glorious sound of a spirit waking up." And not only that, Hafiz went on to say, laughter, it is happiness, applauding itself, and then taking flight to embrace everyone and everything in the world. So I teach them, use laughter. So I teach them very importantly to learn there are 3 things that lead to happiness, and I infuse this process with laughter. First, learn to forgive the past, and then learn to be grateful for the present, and also be kind towards the future. And by doing so, they can learn to recover from this resentment and all these painful negative emotions they have inside. So when we do that, we get them to recite, right? So when we talk about forgive the past, we get them to use the butterfly hug to hug themselves and love themselves, and then we recite this together. I forgive myself for hurting myself out of anger, fear, frustration, and anxiety, and so on. So they recite that, and they think about it for a moment, and then I say, after that, I want you to release it to the world with laughter. And we do that by saying, wah, 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 and then very good, yay. I think you have done that before, right? Yes. Yeah, because we had a session here before on that. So by using laughter to get them to read this, it helps them. So forgive the past, be grateful, it's a prayer. Grateful is like a prayer. So then we recite, I am grateful for the blessings that have brought me comfort, peace, and happiness, and so on. And then kindness towards the future. And where does kindness come from? The heart. So they put a hand over the heart, and then they recite this. May I cultivate the kindness towards things I cannot change, and so on. And then finally we finish it off by saying the way to happiness. And we use, in the case of the women, we use Wonder Woman as the role model. That's why they cross this and say, they feel powerful. By doing that, they actually feel power within themselves. I am powerful. I'm able to do this. So they get to recite this. When we're no longer able to change a situation, we're challenged to change ourselves, so on. All this is very, very relieving. Finally, the fifth method is tension relaxation exercises. When the mind is all disturbed, one of the best ways to relieve the mind is to do exercises. So these are the 5 ways we can help ourselves by changing the way we think. And this is taught by the Buddha in Majjhima Nikaya 20, Vitakka Santana Sutra. Now, this program was so successful with the prison inmates and the prison authorities. Actually, they send people to monitor what I teach because they don't want me to teach anything unwholesome. And then the feedback was so positive with overwhelming success that the prison officers actually asked, the prison authorities asked me to conduct it for their officers. So I have already done several classes at the Correctional Institution for Women in Mandaluyong, as well as the Leyte Regional Prison in Abuyog in Leyte. And it is ongoing. Next week I'm going to Leyte. Monday, Tuesday I'll be at Correctional Institution for Women. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday I'm going to Leyte, conducting a lot of these for their officers. So that is how successful this has been. Now even the officers want this because they recognize this is really a very powerful mental health program. So the prison officers want that. So it's been done already. And with that, I basically end my presentation. I have a lot of slides that you may be interested in. Okay.